The cantina on Epsilon 7 station was always crowded with soldiers. Warriors from dozens of species came here to drink, to talk, and to forget the horrors of war. The air smelled of strange alcohols and the sweat of 100 different kinds of beings. In the corner, away from the noise, sat Commander Zekthor. Zekthor was a Krixal, one of the insect-like warriors that everyone in the galaxy feared. His body was covered in a natural armor that had turned black with age and scarred from countless battles. He had 4 arms, each one capable of crushing steel. His 4 eyes glowed dim red in the cantina's low light. Other soldiers gave him respect, moving out of his way when he walked past. He had earned that respect over 300 years of warfare. Tonight, a group of young officers sat near his table. They were loud and confident, the way young soldiers always are before they see real war. Most of them were Thraxians, tall reptilian beings with green scales and sharp teeth. They bragged about their recent victories and laughed too loud at their own jokes. One of them, a lieutenant with bright scales that showed he had never seen real combat, stood up with a drink in his hand. His name was Karth, and he was clearly drunk. "I say we should attack the human colonies next," Karth announced loudly. "I have read the reports. Humans are weak. No armor, no claws, no venom. They are just soft pink creatures who got lucky with their technology. The Thraxian Empire could crush them in a month." Several other young officers cheered and raised their drinks. They seemed to agree with him. The cantina went quiet. Every veteran soldier in the room turned to look at the young Thraxian. Some looked shocked. Others looked scared. A few looked at Zekthor to see what he would do. Zekthor slowly turned his massive head toward the young officer. His mandibles clicked together, making a sound like bones breaking. It was a sound that made even brave warriors nervous. "Sit down, child," Zekthor said. His voice was deep and rough, like grinding stones. Karth looked offended. "I am a lieutenant in the Thraxian Imperial Guard. I do not take orders from my sit down." Zekthor's eyes flared brighter. Something in the old warrior's voice made Karth obey. He sat down quickly, suddenly much less drunk and much more afraid. Zekthor stood up slowly. His 4 arms moved to rest on the table. Even though he was old, every movement showed deadly power. He walked toward the young officer's table. The crowd parted for him instantly. "You want to fight humans?" Zekthor asked. He pulled a chair over and sat down facing the young soldiers. "Then you should hear a story first. After I tell you this story, if you still want to fight humans, I will not stop you. But you will know exactly what you are choosing." The cantina had gone completely silent now. Even the bartender had stopped working to listen. Everyone knew that when a warrior like Zekthor told a story, it was worth hearing. "I will tell you something once," Zekthor began, "and you will never forget it. In my 300 cycles of warfare, I have done things that would give you nightmares. I have faced the hive legions of Saros, where billions of insects attacked in waves that never ended. I survived the purge of the Meklat Empire, where they burned entire worlds. I have earned 17 marks of valor, the highest honor a Krixal warrior can receive. I have killed more enemies than you have seen stars." He paused and looked directly at Karth. "But there is one species I will never fight again. Humans." Someone in the crowd laughed nervously, but the laugh died quickly when Zekthor's head snapped toward the sound. "You think I joke?" Zekthor asked. "You think the greatest warrior of the Krixal Empire is afraid? Perhaps I am. But I am alive, which is more than I can say for the thousands who did not fear humans enough." He settled back in his chair and his eyes seemed to look at something far away, something from long ago. 50 cycles ago, my people ruled a third of this galaxy. The Krixal Empire was the strongest military force anyone had ever seen. We had conquered 40 species. We had never lost a war. Never. And then we found Earth. Zekthor's mandibles clicked again, but this time it sounded almost like sad laughter. "When our scouts first reported on humans, everyone laughed. The intelligence reports said they were weak. They had no natural weapons, no armor plating like us, no acid blood like the Xenivores, no telepathic abilities like the Mindari. They were just soft pink creatures with no claws and no fangs. Our scientists said they came from a planet with weak gravity, so they would be fragile. Our military analyst classified them as a Category 4 threat, which means minimal danger. One of the young officers spoke up. But humans have good technology now. Everyone knows that. Now, yes, Zekthor agreed. But then they were just starting to spread to other worlds. They had colonies on only 5 planets. Small colonies, mostly miners and farmers. Our high command saw an opportunity. New worlds to conquer, new resources to take, and an enemy so weak that it would be good practice for our young soldiers. Zekthor's voice grew colder. I was chosen to lead the first attack. It was considered an honor but also an easy assignment. They gave me 10,000 elite Krixel shock troops, our best warriors. Our target was a mining colony on a planet called Proxima Reach. Intelligence said there were 3,000 civilians there and only 500 militia. The militia were not even real soldiers, just colonists with basic weapons. He paused and took a drink. His hand was steady, but everyone could see the memories in his eyes. We approached the planet expecting them to surrender as soon as they saw our fleet. Most species do. Instead, they sent us a message, just 3 words: come and try. I thought they were being foolish. Brave, perhaps, but foolish. I ordered the attack. My troops dropped from orbit in assault pods. It should have been simple. Land, secure the colony, accept their surrender. I expected the battle to last maybe 2 hours. Zekthor looked around at the young faces watching him. The battle lasted 6 days, and when it was over, 6,000 of my soldiers were dead. 6,000 of the finest warriors in the Krixal Empire, killed by farmers and miners who barely knew how to use their weapons. The young officers stared at him in disbelief. Karth's mouth was open. You do not believe me, Zekthor said. I see it in your faces. How could simple colonists kill so many trained warriors? That is exactly what I asked myself while I watched my soldiers die. And the answer, young ones, is what makes humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy. He leaned forward, and his voice dropped to almost a whisper, making everyone strain to hear. Humans do not fight like soldiers. They fight like the planet itself is trying to kill you. Every building was a trap. Every corridor held an ambush. They poisoned the water supply. They rigged explosives under the floors. They used their own civilians as bait to lure my soldiers into killing zones. Zekthor's eyes glowed brighter as the memories came back. And they never stopped. We wound them. Terrible wounds that would kill any other species, and they would keep fighting. I saw a human with a broken leg crawl 50 meters through fire to throw a grenade. I saw another one lose an arm and use it as a club to beat my soldiers before she died. They did not fear death. They welcomed it, as long as they took us with them. The cantina was so quiet now that everyone could hear their own breathing. By the time we took that colony, I had lost more than half my force. The Krixal Empire had never suffered such losses against such a small enemy. And do you know what High Command said when I reported this? Karth shook his head slowly. They blamed me. They said I must have made mistakes, that I was too cautious or too aggressive. They refused to believe that humans were truly dangerous. So they sent more forces. Much more. Zekthor stood up slowly. That is when the real war began. And that, young ones, is when I learned what it truly means to fight humans. Zekthor ordered another drink before continuing his story. The young officers waited in silence. Even the drunk ones were sober now, their eyes fixed on the old warrior. After my report about Proxima Reach, the Empire sent investigators, Zekthor continued. They examined the battlefield. They reviewed all my tactical decisions. In the end, they concluded that I had performed adequately given unexpected circumstances. But they still believed humans were weak overall. They thought Proxima Reach was just one unusually well-defended colony. He made a sound that might have been laughter, but there was no humor in it. The High Command decided that the problem was scale. They thought I had simply not brought enough soldiers, so they assembled 10 full battle fleets, 50,000 warships, 2 million soldiers, the largest military force the Krixal Empire had ever deployed against a single species. One of the younger soldiers gasped. 2 million? For just 5 human colonies? Yes, Zekthor said. The Admiralty wanted to make an example. They wanted to show the entire galaxy what happened when someone resisted the Empire. They called it Operation Swift Victory. They predicted it would take 3 weeks to conquer all human space. Zekthor's mandibles clicked in that sad way again. Operation Swift Victory lasted 4 years. And we lost. The cantina erupted in shocked whispers. Several soldiers made gestures to ward off evil. Everyone knew the Krixal Empire's history. They had never lost a war. Never. Zekthor waited for the noise to die down before continuing. The humans did something we never expected. They did not try to defend their colonies. Instead, they evacuated most of the civilians and booby-trapped everything. When our fleets arrived at the second human colony, we found empty cities rigged to explode. We lost 3,000 soldiers to traps before we realized no one was there. But where did they go? Karth asked. That is the terrifying part, Zekthor answered. They went on the attack. While our fleets were bombarding empty colonies, human strike forces appeared behind our lines. They attacked our supply convoys. They raided our staging bases. They even struck at Krixal colonies far from the front lines. Zekthor's 4 eyes glowed with remembered fear. Humans did not fight to defend territory. They fought to kill us. Every battle was designed to maximize our casualties, not to hold ground. They would retreat from a planet, let us land, then bombard us from orbit. They turned asteroids into weapons, pushing them into our fleet formations. They loaded civilian ships with explosives and crashed them into our carriers. That is against the laws of war, one officer protested. Humans do not care about the laws of war, Zekthor said flatly. Or rather, they follow them when it benefits them and ignore them when it does not. They are very practical that way. He paused to drink again. But the worst part was not their tactics. The worst part was their soldiers. Human soldiers are not like Krixal warriors or Thraxian guards. They do not fight because they are ordered to. They fight because they choose to. And that makes them far more dangerous. I do not understand, Karth said. Let me explain, Zekthor replied. When a Krixal soldier dies, the others continue fighting because it is their duty. When a human soldier dies, the others fight harder because they are angry. Humans form bonds with each other, deep emotional connections. They call it friendship or brotherhood. When you kill one human soldier, you do not reduce the enemy's strength. You increase their motivation. Zekthor leaned forward, his voice intense. I once watched a human squad defend a communications post against 100 of my warriors. They were only 12 humans. They should have died in minutes. But when we killed the first one, the others went mad. They fought with a fury I had never seen. They used tactics that made no logical sense. One human ran straight at our lines with nothing but explosives strapped to his chest. He took 20 warriors with him when he exploded. That is suicide, someone whispered. Yes, Zekthor agreed, but effective suicide. By the time we took that communications post, we had lost 40 soldiers, 40 trained warriors dead for 12 humans, and the humans had delayed us long enough for reinforcements to arrive. He stood up and began pacing, his forearms moving as he talked. The war spread across dozens of systems. Everywhere we went, humans were waiting. They learned from every battle. If we used a tactic twice, they would have a counter ready the third time. They adapted faster than any species I have ever fought. But you had more ships, more soldiers, Karth pointed out. How did they win? Numbers are not everything, Zekthor said. Yes, we had more resources at the start, but humans did something we never expected. They made allies. The young officers looked confused. You must understand, Zekthor explained. The Krixal Empire ruled through fear. The species we conquered hated us, but they were too afraid to rebel. Humans changed that. As the war went on, humans found those conquered species, and instead of enslaving them like we did, humans offered them freedom. They offered them weapons. They offered them revenge. Zekthor's voice grew quiet. Within 2 years, we were fighting not just humans but 20 other species that humans had armed and trained. Our empire began to crack. Rebellions broke out on worlds we had held for centuries. Supply lines collapsed, and the humans kept coming. He stopped pacing and looked directly at Karth. The turning point came at the Battle of Crix Prime, our homeworld. The human fleet appeared in orbit with their allies. They had somehow crossed half the galaxy without us knowing. They surrounded our most important planet. What did they do? Karth asked, horrified. They gave us a choice, Zekthor said. They broadcast a message on all frequencies. I remember every word. Surrender unconditionally within 48 hours, or watch what happens. And then? Another officer asked. We refused, of course. The Empire had never surrendered. Our leaders believed that humans were bluffing, that they would not dare attack our homeworld. Zekthor's voice became cold and hard. The humans were not bluffing. In 47 hours, they destroyed 3 of our major colonies. Not from orbit with quick bombardments. No, they did it slowly, methodically. They made sure we watched every moment. They disabled the planetary shields, then took apart the infrastructure piece by piece. Power plants, water treatment, communication centers, everything. They left the populations alive but helpless. The cantina was silent, except for Zekthor's voice. Then they broadcast another message. This is what happens when you make us angry. Surrender now, or Crix Prime is next, and we will not leave anyone alive. By all the stars, someone whispered. Our high command finally understood what they were facing. These were not weak creatures. These were not simple colonists. Humans were survivors from a death world, and they had brought their fury to the stars. The Admiralty voted to open negotiations. Zekthor sat back down heavily. But I did not see the end of the war from a command ship. I saw it from the battlefield. Because before the negotiations could begin, there was one final battle. A battle where I faced a human warrior in single combat. His 4 eyes glowed brighter. Her name was Captain Sarah Chen, and she taught me the final lesson about humans, the one that made me truly afraid. She taught me that humans do not just fight with weapons and ships. They fight with something we Crixall do not have. What is that? Karth asked. The will to win at any cost, Zekthor answered. Even the cost of their own lives. Especially that cost. The old warrior stood again, preparing to continue his tale. Every soldier in the cantina leaned forward, desperate to hear what happened next. Even the bartender had abandoned his work completely. Let me tell you about the day I nearly died, Zekthor said. The day I learned to fear one small human female more than an army of Crixall warriors. Zekthor's 4 hands closed into fists as he remembered that day. Even after 50 cycles, the memory was fresh and painful. The battle took place on Station Kepler 7, a trading post that both sides wanted to control, he began. It was not a large station, but it sat at a key jump point between systems. Whoever held it could control movement through that entire sector. He walked slowly around the table where the young officers sat. I was leading a strike team of 50 elite warriors. Our mission was simple. Secure the station's command center and hold it until reinforcements arrived. Intelligence told us that the station was defended by only 30 human Marines. We expected an easy victory. Zekthor stopped walking and closed his eyes. We should have known better by then. Nothing involving humans was ever easy. What happened? Karth asked quietly. The humans were waiting for us, Zekthor said. They had turned the entire station into a maze of death. Every corridor had fields of fire. Every room had multiple exits for them and traps for us. They had spent weeks preparing for our attack. He opened his eyes and continued. My team fought through the outer sections. We lost soldiers with every step. The humans would appear, fire, and disappear before we could react. They used the station's ventilation system to move around. They cut the lights and used sensors that could see in the dark. They knew every inch of that station, and we knew nothing. Zekthor's voice grew harder. By the time we reached the command center, I had only 20 warriors left. 30 had died just getting there, and that is when I met Captain Chen. He paused, and for a moment something that looked almost like respect crossed his alien features. She was waiting in the command center with 5 other Marines, 6 humans against 20 Crixall warriors. She should have surrendered. Instead, she smiled at me. Actually smiled like she was happy to see us. Why would she smile? One of the officers asked. Because she had already won and she knew it, Zekthor answered. The command center was the perfect killing ground. One entrance, but multiple levels inside with cover everywhere. She had set it up perfectly. Zekthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. The battle lasted 30 minutes. When it was over, I had 5 warriors left. Captain Chen had 3 Marines still alive. The room was covered in blood, both human red and Crixal green. The walls had holes from gunfire and plasma burns. Bodies were everywhere. He sat down heavily. That is when she challenged me directly. Single combat, she called it. Winner takes the station. She said it would save lives on both sides. You accepted? Karth asked, surprised. I had no choice, Zekthor said. My remaining warriors were wounded and exhausted. Her Marines were in better condition. If the fighting continued, we would lose. But in single combat, I was certain I would win. I was bigger, stronger, and had 4 arms to her too. I had 100 years of combat experience. She was young, maybe 30 cycles old. Zekthor held up one of his scarred arms. She gave me these scars, all of them from that fight. The young officer stared at the arm. It was covered in old wounds, some looking like burns, others like cuts. How? Someone asked. Because I underestimated her, Zekthor said simply. I thought strength and size would be enough. I was wrong. He stood and began demonstrating with his arms. We fought in the center of the command center. Her Marines and my warriors watched from the sides. I attacked first using my superior reach and strength. She dodged. I attacked again. She dodged again. I could not hit her. Zekthor's eyes glowed with the memory. Humans are slower than Crixal in straight-line speed, but they can change direction faster. She moved like water flowing around my attacks, and while she dodged, she struck back. Small cuts, tiny wounds, nothing serious, but many of them. He touched various scars on his body. She was bleeding me slowly. I realized she was not trying to win quickly. She was making me tired, so I changed tactics. I used my forearms to grab her, planning to crush her. I caught her arm. Zekthor's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. She broke her own arm to escape my grip, just snapped it deliberately against my armor. The pain should have stopped her. Instead, something happened. Her eyes changed. Humans have a chemical they produce called adrenaline. When they are hurt or afraid, their bodies flood with it. It makes them stronger and faster, and it stops them from feeling pain. That is impossible, Karth said. I thought so too, Zekthor replied, but I watched her fight with a broken arm for another 3 minutes. She used the broken arm as a weapon, swinging it at my eyes to blind me, and with her good arm she drew a knife. He pointed to a long scar across his chest. She gave me this, cut right through my armor. I have never felt such pain. I fell and she was on me instantly. Her knife at my throat, ready to end me. Zekthor looked around at all the watching faces, and then she did something I still do not understand. She did not kill me. She spoke instead. His voice became quiet as he remembered her words. She said, "Tell your people that humans do not want to be conquerors. We just want to live in peace. But we will never be victims. Surrender and we will have peace. Your people will be treated fairly. Fight, and we will exterminate every last Crixal in the galaxy. We will hunt you across the stars until your species is just a memory." The cantina was absolutely silent. I looked into her eyes, Zekthor continued, and I knew she meant it. Every word. Humans are not like us. When we make threats, they are tactical. When humans make threats, they are promises. He touched his throat where her knife had been. She let me stand up. She even had her medical officer treat my wounds. Then she gave me a communication device and told me to contact my superiors. She said she would give me 1 hour to arrange a ceasefire for this sector. What did you do? Karth asked. I called my admiral, Zekthor said. I told him everything. The tactical situation, the human defenses, and Captain Chen's offer. I recommended immediate surrender. Not just for the station, but for the entire war. He laughed bitterly. The admiral was furious. He called me a coward. He ordered me to fight to the death. So I did something I had never done in 300 years of service. I refused an order. The young officers gasped. Refusing orders was unthinkable in most military cultures. I told the admiral that I had seen the future of this war. Humans would not stop. They could not stop. They were not built to surrender or to accept defeat. Every battle would be like this one, grinding us down, bleeding us slowly. We could win 1,000 battles and still lose the war because humans would never quit. Zekthor's voice grew stronger. I told him that Captain Chen had shown mercy today. But if we continued fighting, that mercy would disappear. Humans have a saying, do not mistake kindness for weakness. She could have killed me and all my warriors. She chose not to because she wanted peace. But she would kill every Krixal alive if we forced her to. What did the Admiral say? An officer asked. He relieved me of command, Zekthor said. But 3 days later, the High Command called for negotiations. They had finally realized what I already knew. We could not win. Not against an enemy that would rather die than surrender. Not against a species that turned their weaknesses into weapons. Zekthor looked at each young officer in turn. Captain Chen gave me something before I left the station. A small metal coin, a human military medal. On one side it has their words, "Come and take it." On the other side she had written a personal message. To Commander Zekthor, who was brave enough to choose peace. I carry it with me always. He pulled the coin from a pouch and held it up so everyone could see it in the dim light. This reminds me every day that humans are not our enemies because they are strong. They are dangerous because they give us a choice, peace or extinction, and they mean it. Zekthor sat down again and ordered another drink. The bartender brought it quickly, not wanting to interrupt the story. Every being in the cantina was listening now. Word had spread through the station and more soldiers had crowded in to hear the legendary commander speak. The negotiations took 3 months. Zekthor continued. Both sides were exhausted. The Krixal Empire had lost more soldiers in 4 years against humans than in the previous 2 centuries of conquest. Our economy was collapsing from the cost of the war. Rebellions were breaking out on worlds we had held for generations. He drank slowly before continuing. But humans were suffering too. They had lost millions of civilians. Entire colonies had been destroyed. Their military was stretched across dozens of systems. They were winning, but the cost was terrible. One of the young officers spoke up. If both sides were tired of fighting, why did it take 3 months to make peace? Because humans do not trust easily, Zekthor explained. They wanted guarantees. They demanded that we release all conquered species. They wanted war crime trials for our commanders who had committed atrocities. They wanted their colonies rebuilt at our expense. And most importantly, they wanted to make sure we would never attack anyone again. Zekthor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The negotiations almost failed many times. Human representatives were difficult to deal with. They would not accept simple promises. They wanted everything written down, verified and enforced by independent observers. They thought of details that our diplomats never considered. What kind of details? Karth asked. Everything, Zekthor said. Who would monitor the peace treaty? What would happen if either side violated it? How would disputes be resolved? What about reparations? What about prisoners of war? Humans had answers for all of it. They had been planning for peace even while fighting the war. He paused and looked around the cantina. That is another thing that makes humans dangerous. They can fight with total fury and plan for peace at the same time. Most species cannot do both. Either they fight until they cannot fight anymore, or they give up early. Humans do neither. They fight as hard as necessary while always keeping their ultimate goals in mind. Zekthor took another drink. I was asked to participate in the negotiations. The High Command thought that since I had met Captain Chen, I might understand humans better than most Krixal. They were right, but they did not like what I told them. What did you tell them? An officer asked. The truth, Zekthor said simply. I told them that humans were not like other species we had conquered. They would not accept domination. They would not forget what we had done. And if we ever threatened them again, they would not show mercy a second time. His 4 eyes dimmed slightly. Many in the High Command wanted to continue the war. They thought that if we just fought a little longer, we could break the human will to fight. I had to explain to them multiple times that humans do not break. They bend, they adapt, but they do not break. Zekthor leaned forward, his voice intense. I told them a story that Captain Chen had shared with me. On Earth, humans have an animal called a honey badger. It is small, much smaller than a human. But it is known as one of the most fearsome creatures on their planet. Do you know why? The young officers shook their heads. Because it does not know when to quit, Zekthor explained. It fights animals 10 times its size. It gets stung by bees and keeps going. It gets bitten by snakes and survives. It is not the strongest, or the fastest, or the most dangerous animal on Earth, but it is one of the most feared, because it will never stop fighting. He looked directly at Karth. Humans are the honey badgers of the galaxy. They will fight opponents bigger and stronger than them. They will take damage that would kill most species and keep going. They will find a way to survive and win no matter what. That is why you do not challenge them. The cantina was quiet for a moment before Zekthor continued. Eventually, the High Command accepted my advice. We signed the Treaty of Titan, named after one of Earth's moons where the final negotiations took place. The Crixel Empire agreed to release all conquered species. We paid reparations. We allowed human observers into our space, and we reduced our military to a fraction of its former size. That must have been humiliating, one officer said. Yes, Zekthor agreed, but necessary. The alternative was extinction. He stood up and began pacing again. The treaty had one clause that I insisted on personally. Any Crixel who violated the treaty would be turned over to human justice. Many of my people thought this was too harsh, but I knew it was necessary. Humans needed to know that we were serious about peace. Zekthor stopped pacing and looked at the young officers. In the 50 cycles since the treaty was signed, only 3 Crixel have violated it. All 3 were turned over to humans as promised. Do you know what happened to them? They were executed? Karth guessed. No, Zekthor said. They were put on trial, given lawyers, and allowed to present evidence. One was found guilty and imprisoned. The other 2 were found not guilty and released. Humans gave them fair trials even though these Crixel had killed human civilians. He let that sink in before continuing. That is what I mean about humans being dangerous. They can be merciful even to their enemies, but that mercy is not weakness. It is strength. It is control, and it makes them more frightening than any species that simply kills everyone who opposes them. Zekthor returned to his seat. After the war, I visited Earth once. I was invited as part of a cultural exchange program. I wanted to see the world that had produced Captain Chen and soldiers like her. His voice took on a tone of wonder. Earth is a nightmare world. I do not mean that as an insult. I mean it literally. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is full of oxygen, which is poisonous to many species. The weather is violent and unpredictable. The plants and animals are dangerous. Even the microbes are aggressive. One of the officers looked confused. But humans evolved there. It must be normal for them. That is exactly the point, Zekthor said. Humans think their world is normal. They think it is pleasant. They vacation in places that would kill most other species. They climb mountains for fun. They swim in oceans full of predators. They live in deserts and jungles and frozen wastelands. He shook his head in amazement. While I was there, I asked to meet Captain Chen again. She had been promoted to colonel by then. She agreed to meet me and we talked for hours. I asked her why humans fight the way they do, why they never surrender, why they keep going when any rational species would quit. Zekthor's voice grew quiet. She told me something I will never forget. She said that humans evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill them. Every day on Earth was a battle for survival. They developed the ability to endure pain, to keep going when injured, to work together against impossible odds. It was not a choice. It was necessary for survival. He looked around at all the watching faces. Then she said something that chilled me. She said that humans had brought their survival skills to the stars. They were no longer fighting Earth. Now they were fighting anyone who threatened them or their friends. And they had millions of years of evolution that taught them how to survive. Zekthor touched the coin in his pouch again. She also told me something hopeful. She said that humans did not want to be warriors. They wanted to be explorers, scientists, artists, and builders. They only became warriors when forced to. But once they started fighting, they would not stop until they won or died. The old commander looked tired now, as if telling the story had drained him. That is why I warn you, young ones. Humans will be your friends if you let them. They will trade with you, share technology with you, even fight alongside you. But if you make them your enemy, they will never stop coming. Never. Zekthor finished his drink and set the glass down carefully. The cantina remained silent, waiting for him to continue. He looked at each of the young officers, especially Karth, who had started this conversation with his foolish suggestion to attack human colonies. Let me tell you what I learned about humans in the 50 cycles since the war ended, Zekthor said. These are lessons that every species in the galaxy should know. He held up one of his 4 hands, extending a finger for each point. First, humans pack bond with everything. Not just with other humans, but with any living thing. They adopt animals from other planets as pets. They name their ships and talk to them like they are alive. They form friendships with aliens who look nothing like them. This seems harmless, even amusing, but it is actually one of their most dangerous traits. Why is that dangerous? One of the officers asked. Because when you attack a human's friend, you do not make one enemy. You make all enemies, Zekthor explained. During the war, the Krixal Empire made the mistake of destroying a colony that included refugees from other species. Humans had given these aliens shelter. When we killed them, humans did not just get angry for themselves. They got angry for their alien friends. He lowered one finger and extended another. Second, humans have incredible endurance. They are not the fastest species. They are not the strongest. But they can keep going long after others stop. On Earth, humans used to hunt animals by chasing them until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. They still have that ability. In battle, human soldiers can march for days with little sleep. They can fight when wounded. They can function in conditions that would kill most species. Zekthor's voice grew more intense. I saw human soldiers fight for 72 hours straight during the Battle of Kepler Station. No sleep, little food, constant combat. When it was over, they treated the wounded, secured the area, and then asked for their next assignment. My warriors, who are bred for combat, would have needed days to recover. Humans rested for 6 hours and were ready to fight again. He lowered another finger. Third, humans weaponize everything. They look at any object and think, how can I use this to kill my enemy? During the war, they turned mining equipment into weapons. They used cargo ships as bombs. They modified farming tools into traps. One human even killed 3 of my warriors with a wrench and a piece of wire. Some of the young officers looked skeptical. Zekthor noticed, you do not believe me? Let me tell you about the Battle of Outpost 7. We surrounded a human supply depot. They had no weapons left, only tools and materials. We expected quick surrender. Instead, they built weapons from what they had. They made explosives from fertilizer. They created crossbows from construction materials. They turned their own vehicles into bombs. By the time we took the depot, we had lost more soldiers than they had defenders. He lowered a third finger. Fourth, humans learn from everything. Every battle teaches them something new. Every defeat makes them stronger. During the war, we had superior weapons at the start. Within a year, humans had copied our technology and improved it. Within 2 years, their weapons were better than ours. They did not just copy, they innovated. Zekthor's mandibles clicked in what might have been respect. Humans have a concept they call adapt and overcome. It means that when faced with a problem, they find a solution. Always. If the first solution does not work, they try another, and another. They never accept that something is impossible. They just assume they have not found the right solution yet. He lowered the fourth finger and looked at his hand. But the most important lesson, the one that every species needs to understand, is this. Humans do not want to be your enemy. They genuinely prefer peace. They want to explore, to create, to build. But if you force them to fight, they will fight with everything they have, and they will not stop until you are no longer a threat. Zekthor placed the hand flat on the table. That is the terrible balance of humanity. They are capable of great kindness and terrible violence, often at the same time. During the war, I saw human medics risk their lives to save wounded Krixal soldiers. I also saw human soldiers burn entire Krixal bases to the ground. Sometimes these were the same humans doing both things in the same day. Karth, who had been quiet for a long time, finally spoke. How do we deal with such a species? How do we interact with them safely? Carefully, Zekthor answered. And honestly, humans respect strength, but they value honesty more. If you deal fairly with them, they will be the best allies you could ask for. If you lie to them or betray them, they will be the worst enemies you can imagine. He pulled out the coin that Captain Chen had given him and placed it on the table where everyone could see it. This coin reminds me of something important. The words on it, "Come and take it," are from human history. Ancient human warriors said this when enemies demanded their weapons. It means if you want what we have, you will have to take it by force, and we will make you pay for every step. Zekthor looked around the crowded cantina, but Captain Chen's personal message on the other side is equally important. She called me brave for choosing peace. That tells you everything you need to know about humans. They understand that sometimes the bravest choice is not to fight. They respect those who choose peace even after experiencing war. He picked up the coin and held it up so the light caught it. Since the treaty was signed, the Krixal Empire has rebuilt. We are not the conquerors we once were, but we are stronger in other ways. We trade with other species instead of enslaving them. We have allied with the humans and their coalition, and I have lived to see my people prosper in ways that conquest never brought us. Zekthor put the coin away carefully. Many of my people were angry at first. They thought the peace treaty was humiliating. But I told them what I will tell you now. There is no shame in losing to humans. They are not weak creatures who got lucky. They are survivors from a death world who brought their will to survive to the stars. Losing to them taught us more than winning against weaker species ever did. He looked directly at Karth. So, young lieutenant, do you still want to attack human colonies? Karth was pale under his scales. He shook his head quickly. No, Commander. I was foolish. I did not understand. Good, Zekthor said. Because if you had insisted, I would have reported you to your superiors as a danger to your own people. Anyone who wants to start a war with humans is not brave. They are stupid. And stupidity in military officers gets soldiers killed. The old commander stood up slowly, his forearm stretching. I have told you my story. I have shared my warnings. What you do with this knowledge is your choice. But remember this. The galaxy is large enough for all of us. There is no need for wars of conquest anymore. There is enough space, enough resources, enough worlds for everyone. He looked around the cantina one last time. Humans proved that you do not need to be the biggest or the strongest to survive. You just need to refuse to quit. Every species can learn from that lesson. Work hard, adapt to challenges, protect your friends, and never start a fight you are not prepared to finish. Zekthor walked toward the door, the crowd parting before him. Before he left, he turned back. One more thing. If you ever meet Captain Sarah Chen, treat her with respect. She saved my life by not taking it. She ended a war by offering peace. And she taught this old warrior that mercy is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength. He tapped his chest where his heart beat. She also taught me that humans are not warriors by nature. They are builders and dreamers who learn to fight because their world forced them to. Given the choice between creating something beautiful or destroying something, humans will choose to create every time. Unless you threaten what they love. Then they will destroy you without hesitation and sleep peacefully afterward. With those final words, Commander Zekthor left the cantina. Behind him, the young officers sat in silence, thinking about everything they had heard. The coin Captain Chen had given him remained in his pouch, a reminder of the day he learned the most important lesson of his long life. Never challenge humans unless you are prepared for them to win. Karth looked at his fellow officers and spoke quietly. I think we should recommend an alliance with humanity, not out of fear but out of respect. The others nodded in agreement. They had come to the cantina as arrogant young warriors. They left as wiser beings who understood that strength comes in many forms, and that the most dangerous opponent is the one who refuses to surrender. In the 50 cycles since the war ended, humans had built more than they had destroyed. They had explored further than any other species. They had made friends across the galaxy, but everyone who had fought them remembered the lesson that Zekthor had shared tonight. Humans were peaceful until you gave them no choice. Then they were unstoppable. And that, more than any weapon or any army, was why you never challenged them. The cantina slowly returned to normal, but the story would spread. Within days it would reach other stations, other worlds. The legend of Commander Zekthor's warning would be told and retold, each time reinforcing the same message. Respect humans. Work with them. Learn from them. But never ever make them your enemy. Because if you did, you would learn the same lesson the Krixall Empire had learned at such terrible cost. Humans do not fight because they love war.